Hello students, welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video lecture, we will solve payload questions from Keith Williams. So far we have solved many questions. I hope you have understood them, you have practiced them, you feel confident in solving them. We will continue that practice and in this video lecture we will solve new questions to enhance our preparation for DGC exam. So let's start with question 51. Total crew 12. 12 pilots, each 85 kilograms. Dry operating mass is given, performance landing mass, zero fuel mass, takeoff mass, structural landing mass, total fuel, startup taxi fuel, then special equipment, performance takeoff mass, trip fuel is given. So all these particulars are given to you. We have to find the traffic load. So we will continue, correction, we will proceed with our usual procedure, which is step 1 to make 3 columns, one for takeoff mass, the second one for landing mass, the third one for zero fuel mass. In the takeoff mass column, you are going to write a value which is less of maximum structural takeoff mass, performance limited takeoff mass. In the landing mass column, you are going to write a value which is less of maximum structural landing mass and performance limited landing mass. To that value, you are going to add ship fuel. In the zero fuel mass column, you are going to use formula zero fuel mass plus fuel on board or takeoff fuel. So let's start with takeoff mass column. Now maximum structural takeoff mass is 2 lakh. Performance limited takeoff mass is 1,95,000. 1,95,000 being less than 2 lakh, this becomes a takeoff mass. So I'm writing here 1,95,000. Okay, divide by 1000 to make calculations easy. Next, between performance limited landing mass and maximum structural landing mass, 170, that is 1,70,000 is less than 1,75,000. So we are going to use the value 170 here and add trip fuel to this. Now what is trip fuel? It is 52,000. So 170 plus 52, which is triple two. Next, zero fuel mass is 1,40,000, so 140. Fuel on board. It's not given to us directly. We can obtain it from using formula total fuel minus fuel used in startup and taxi. Right? So what is fuel on board? Fuel on board is nothing but takeoff fuel. The fuel in your fuel tanks. The fuel in the fuel tanks when aircraft is on the runway. So when it goes from its parking area to the runway, it will consume all the fuel in taxiing, in starting aircraft, taxiing, right? So that's why we subtract startup and taxi fuel from total fuel. After that, we will be left with takeoff fuel or fuel on board. So total fuel is 60,000 kg. Startup and taxi fuel is 500 kg. So this amounts to 59.5. So 140 plus 59.5 is 199.5. Now out of these three takeoff values, we consider the least value our regulated takeoff mass, which is 195. So this becomes a regulated takeoff mass. Now regulated takeoff mass equals to traffic load plus dry operating mass plus fuel on board. Therefore, 195 equals to traffic load plus 59.5 plus dry operating mass 115. Therefore, traffic load equals to 195 minus 115 plus 59.5, which is 174.5. So that is equal to 20.5 or 20,500 kg, right? So traffic load will be equal to 20,500 kg. So this is the final answer. Let's go to question 52. Again, similar information is given to you: basic empty mass, landing mass, zero fuel, takeoff mass, etc. We have to find traffic load. So let's start with our usual step 1: takeoff mass, landing mass, zero fuel mass. In the takeoff mass column, you write a value which is less of performance limited takeoff mass and structural takeoff mass. Now, between performance takeoff mass of 195 and structural takeoff mass 200, 195 is less than 200, so this becomes our takeoff mass. Next, in the landing mass column, you are going to select a value which is less of performance limited landing mass and structural limited landing mass. To that, you are going to add trip fuel. So what is performance limited landing mass? 175. Structural landing mass 170. So 170 being less than 175, it becomes it, it becomes a choice, and the trip fuel is 62,000. So plus 62. So 232 is a takeoff mass. Next, in the zero fuel mass column, you are going to use the formula zero fuel mass plus fuel on board. Now zero fuel mass is equal to 140. Fuel on board. So fuel on board is not given to us directly, so it is equal to total fuel minus startup taxi fuel. So total fuel is 70,000. Startup and taxi fuel is 500 kg, so minus 0.5 equals to 69.5. So 140 plus 69.5 equals to 209.5, right? Now out of these three values, the value which is least in value becomes a regulated takeoff mass, and that value is 195. So regulated takeoff mass equals to dry operating mass plus traffic load plus fuel on board. So regulated takeoff mass is 195, fuel on board 69, DOM is, now DOM is also not given to you directly. We know DOM is equal to basic empty mass plus variable load. Now in variable load we consider crew and special equipment. So 100 plus crew. Now there are 12 pilots, each weighing 85 kilograms. So 12 into 85 will be 1020. So 1.02. Special equipment is 4500. So plus 4.5. So 100 plus 1.02 plus 4.5 is 105.52. So 105.52. Therefore, traffic load will be equal to 195 minus 69.5 plus 105.52, which is equal to 175.02. So 195 minus that is equal to 19.908. So traffic load is equal to 19,980. Okay. This is your answer. Let's go to next question, question 53. How much fuel would need to be unloaded to enable a traffic load of 32,000 kg to be carried on following aircraft? So we have to make some space for this extra traffic load of 32,000 kg, and uh, in order to add extra load of 32,000 kg, we will have to subtract something called fuel, okay, to make space for extra traffic load. So we will start with a usual procedure. Takeoff mass is which is less of performance limited takeoff mass and structural takeoff mass. Landing mass is less of performance limited landing mass and structural landing mass plus trip fuel. Zero fuel mass is zero fuel mass plus fuel on board. Now between performance limited takeoff mass and structural takeoff mass, performance limited takeoff mass is less than structural takeoff mass. So we will write 195 here. Now between performance limited landing mass 175 and structural landing mass 170, 170 is less than 175. So put 170, add trip fuel. So trip fuel is 62,000 kg, so plus 62. 170 plus 62 is 232. So write 232 here. Zero fuel mass. Now zero fuel mass is 140. Fuel on board is not given to us directly. We have been given total fuel. So fuel on board is nothing but total minus startup and taxi fuel. So total is 70,000 minus startup taxi 0.5, 69.5. So write 69.5 here. Now 140 plus 69.5 is 209.5. Now out of these three takeoff values, the one which is the least in value becomes a regulated takeoff mass. Therefore, regulated takeoff mass equals to payload plus DOM plus fuel on board. 195 equals to payload plus 69.5. Again, dry operating mass is not given to us directly, but we know DOM equals to basic empty mass of 100 plus special equipment 4.5 plus crew 12 into 85, 1020, so 1.02. So 100 plus 1.02 plus 4.5 is 105.52. So write it here. Traffic load or payload will be equal to 195 minus 69.5 plus 105.52, which is 175.02. So that is equal to 19.98. Okay, 19.98. So now already in this, so in this aircraft we already have a payload of current payload or traffic load of 19,980 kg. We want to add, we want to carry a traffic load of 32,000 kg, right? So our target payload is 32,000 kg. That means extra payload that we have to carry, extra payload is equal to 32 minus, which is 12,020 kg. So that means we have to make extra space for 12,020 kg of traffic load or payload. So that's why our final answer will be how much fuel would need to be unloaded. A fuel equal to 12,020 kg would need to be unloaded. Remember this, would need to be unloaded. Okay, next. Question 54. Calculate the maximum traffic load for the following aircraft. Again, step 1, make 3 columns, one for takeoff mass, second for landing mass, the third for zero fuel mass. Okay, so in the takeoff mass column, you write a value which is less of performance limited takeoff mass and structural takeoff mass. The performance takeoff mass is 195, structural takeoff mass is 200. So between them, 195 is the lower value. In landing mass, you are going to write a value which is less of performance limited landing mass and structural landing mass, and you are going to add trip fuel to that. So performance landing mass is 175, structural landing mass is 170. So 170 is less than 175, consider that. Trip fuel is 62,000 kg, so plus 62. Now 170 plus 62 is 232. Zero fuel mass is 135. Fuel on board. Now fuel on board is equal to total fuel minus startup and taxi fuel. So 70,000 minus 0.5 is 69.5. So 135 plus 69.5 is 204.5. Out of these three values, 195 is the lowest value, so it becomes a regulated takeoff mass. So it is fuel on board plus payload plus DOM. Therefore, 195 equals to 69.5 plus payload. Now DOM again, it's not given to us directly, but we know DOM equals to BEM plus variable load. A basic empty mass is 115. Variable load is 4.5 plus 1.02. So 115 plus 4.5 plus 1.02 is 120.52. Therefore, payload will be equal to 195 minus 69.5 plus 120.52, which is 190.02, is equal to 4.98. So payload will be 4,980 kg. Okay, next. Last question for this lecture. Calculate maximum traffic load and conditions are given to you. So again, we'll make three columns, one for takeoff mass, second landing mass, the third for zero fuel mass. In the takeoff mass column, you consider a value which is less of, which is less in value between performance limited takeoff mass and structural takeoff mass. So performance takeoff mass is 72,000, structural is 73,000. Definitely 72 is less than 73, so consider that. So performance limited landing mass is 65,000, structural landing mass is 66,000. So between them, 65 is less. Add trip fuel. Now trip fuel is not given to you directly, but we have takeoff fuel 10,500. At the time of landing, the fuel in the tanks is 8,705 kg. So the difference between them will be a trip fuel, right? So 10,500 minus 8,705 will be 1795. So 1.795. 65 plus 1.795 is 66.795. Zero fuel mass is 62,000 plus fuel on board, that is takeoff fuel, 10.5. So this equals to 72.5. Now out of these three values, the least value is 66.795. This becomes a regulated takeoff mass, which is equal to payload or traffic load plus dry operating mass plus fuel on board. Therefore, 66.795 equals to payload plus 10 plus 49 DOM plus fuel on board 10.5. So payload will be equal to 66.795 minus 59.5, which is 7.295 or 7,295 kg. So this is the payload. So this is how you do all the 5 questions that I have done in this lecture. I hope you have understood how to solve them all. And if you have any questions, doubts, let me know in the comment box. I'll happily answer them. With this, we come to the end of this lecture. We will do the next questions in the next video lecture. Till then, keep practicing all the questions I have done. Practice the questions from BALI as well. Subscribe to this channel and don't forget to share this video with all your friends. I'll see you in the next video lecture.